Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are finally going to be taking a look at the biggest Navi. That's right. This in my hands is the RX 6900 XT graphics card from AMD. As you can see, this is the reference model card. Just looking at it, you would think it's the 6800 XT because it looks exactly identical. As far as I can tell, it's the same size, same thickness, about 2.5 slot card roughly, and would serve as a very good weapon for clubbing baby seals when you are not using it to play high-end video games, which we're going to be testing here in this video today in a way that you probably won't see any other reviewer test this particular graphics card on launch day in two different ways, only one of those things actually being a good thing. One of them is that we are going to be focusing a lot on ultra-wide performance for 3440 by 1440 on a launch day review. I guarantee you, you will not see another large tech channel testing this card today on ultra-wide resolution. So that's a plus if you're into ultra-wide gaming. And the other thing, which is not as good, arguably, is that I am not going to be comparing it up against the RTX 3090, primarily because, like 99.999% of you, I don't own one because NVIDIA or board partners never sent me one. And even if I wanted to buy one, which I actually do, I can't find them in stock anywhere. I found it easier to get a PS5 this year than I did an RTX 3090, so hopefully in 2021, maybe I'll be able to find one, or maybe get a 3080 Ti if those do eventually come out. So we'll be taking a look at this card at 3440 by 1440 ultra wide, as well as 4K resolution up against the RTX 3080, which is its nearest competitor. And if you think about it, as far as competition concerns when it comes to price points, the 3080 is actually closer in price to the $1,000 6900 XT, with the 3080 being $700, so we got a $300 price difference there, versus the Founders 3090, which is $1,500, which is a $500 price difference. So if you think about it, comparing it to the 3090 doesn't even really make sense. It kind of puts this card really in a class of its own, at least for now. And if NVIDIA comes out with a 3080 Ti for probably around $1,000, this will probably match up really with that card. So I'll be comparing it against the 3080 because, well, that's just the best card that I have from NVIDIA. So card is absolutely beautiful. Looks just like the 6800 XT as well as the 6800. In the box, they actually included a nice little mouse pad here, which can also, like the 1600 XT, you can use that as a weapon, and you could use this possibly as a COVID mask. Do I look like I am being safe? Actually, I kind of look like an evil cowboy or something. I don't know. I don't know if this is practicing social distancing. I'm sorry. This thing probably came from China. I'm just going to go ahead and put that over there. But first, today's video is brought to you by Prime Tech Mart, where you can grab adapters and eGPU accessories, as well as software products like Windows 10 Pro licenses for extremely cheap. They've also got Office products and Vizio, as well as many more. You can save a lot of money on these keys with something like Windows 10 Pro. You can grab for just $21.43. It's a lifetime activation, so you don't ever need to renew it. You don't need to create an account with them in order to be able to buy it, and you get your key in just a matter of seconds. And if you hit up the links down in the description below and you want to save yourself an additional 20% off of any software over there, just go ahead and use my code JP20 at checkout, apply that, and it'll drop down 20%. So here on Windows 10 Pro for $21, we drop that down to $17, and you're fully activated for life. For more information, check out those links down in the description below along with the coupon code. So to shake things up a little bit in this review, I want to get into the actual gaming performance numbers as soon as possible. I will have timestamps in the description as well along the timeline. If you want to jump ahead to anything, we will be talking about power consumption, cooling, overclocking on this card. But we're going to start off talking about gaming performance, which means first we do need to talk about the test system for people that are interested in those granular details. So everything, both of these cards were tested inside of the same system, which is my test rig, with the i7-8700K locked at 4.8 gigahertz, which, despite what 0.5% of people say is a bottleneck, is absolutely not a bottleneck for these graphics cards, especially when you're testing at 4K and 3440 ultra-wide resolution. So I was testing inside of that rig with that CPU, along with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory at 32 100 megahertz. All of the games were running off of an NVMe SSD, and I was using the latest drivers for AMD and NVIDIA. For AMD, I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's the press driver that was provided out to all members of the media, along with the 6900 XT for our testing. And for NVIDIA, I was using 457.51. Both of these cards were tested in these benchmarks at their stock configurations right out of the box. There was no tweaking done to fan curves, clock speeds, memory clocks, anything, you name it. No additional features enabled in Radeon software or the NVIDIA control panel or anything like that. These cards were pulled out of the box, put in the system, updated with the latest drivers on a clean install, and tested for you guys to the best of my abilities at ultra settings with ray tracing turned off. There's a lot of feedback on the previous 6000 series GPUs. People wanted to see ray tracing off more so than ray tracing on, since it really does butcher the performance. So, and these, the different companies, kind of handle it a little bit differently. So we're going to be testing this with ray tracing off, and we can just get a look at the pure rasterization performance of the 6900 XT and the RTX 3080. So without any further ado, let's get into the benchmarks, and we will start off with 3440 by 1440 ultra wide resolution here. Again, ultra settings here, RTX off. This is your average FPS, where you can see the 6900 XT is doing incredibly well. Pretty much across, it is doing very well across the entire board here. Some games are definitely closer than others, but it seems like some titles here, like Division 2 and Watch Dogs, are a little bit closer, as well as Horizon Zero Dawn. But yeah, the left side of the graph, like F1, Borderlands 3, Godfall, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, titles that we know to favor AMD quite well, are really winning by a considerable margin, like another league of graphics card, honestly, over the RTX 3080. And again, the RTX 3090 is probably going to be a popular comparison for this particular card, as they both are $1,000 plus, and the 3080 is $700. But, knowing what we know about the performance of the 3090, which is to say it's about maybe 5 to 10%-ish on a good day faster than the RTX 3080, I see in most of these games that I tested here, particularly from F1 2020 down to the left side or all the way towards Valhalla, I would assume the 6900 XT would win against the 3090 in those games as well at a fairly considerable amount. And on the right side, with Horizon Zero Dawn, Division, and Watch Dogs, we would probably be neck and neck, and possibly even favoring the 6900 XT, or maybe losing by a little bit. But even if it did lose by a few frames to an RTX 3090, I think you would be hard-pressed to justify the additional $500 cost of that 3090, which I sadly don't have here to test. But we can kind of imagine where it would be. But looking at this graph, you can see that both of these cards are solid performers for 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide, but the 6900 XT is considerably better. So yeah, very, very good card here for ultra-wide. I really feel like if you pick this up for just regular 2560 by 1440, you would probably be doing yourself a disservice, as with something like that, you could really go with a 6800 XT and be absolutely fine. And I'll go ahead and put up the 1% lows here now for ultra-wide, where you can see the 6900 XT performs phenomenally. Not a title here goes below 60 frames per second. Did get a little close in Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion, which are both horribly optimized and extremely demanding Ubisoft titles, while the RTX 3080 definitely had a few titles here where it did fall behind 60. Assassin's Creed Valhalla all the way down to 45, Godfall below 60, and Watch Dogs Legion down at 56, while the other titles were able to maintain over 60 frames per second through the duration of the benchmark, which, if you were curious between these two GPUs at all, it seems like the 1600 XT would be a much better card for ultra-wide. And now we will move into the more taxing side of things with 3840 by 2160, your 4K UHD resolution, again tested at ultra presets, RTX off, your average FPS here showing that the 6900 XT actually can do really well here at 4K, which you would really hope it to be able to do. I've personally been gaming on the RTX 3080 Founders Edition card, which was used here for this was the Founders card. I don't know if I mentioned that previously. But yeah, on the left side here of the board, doing so much better for the 1600 XT, while in Horizon Zero Dawn, Division 2, and Watch Dogs Legion, much, much closer. Division 2 actually tying at 68 frames per second, really showing that card has to favor NVIDIA a fair amount if the 3080 is able to tie the $1,000 1600 XT. Either that or the AMD cards are just optimized poorly for Division 2 at least. And then Watch Dogs Legion, only a 2 frames per second difference there, so kind of hard to really call a victor on that. It's kind of within the margin of error there. At just 2 frames per second, and one could argue even for Horizon Zero Dawn, but it did in ultra-wide as well as at 4K, it did favor the 6900 XT, but again, this is a $1,000 card against a $700 card, so we expected it to, favor the $1,000 card, you would hope anyway. Taking a look at the 1% lows here, you could see that we did have some more titles below 60 frames per second with the 6900 XT, Valhalla, Godfall, and Watch Dogs Legion being the most taxing or unoptimized games of the bunch, however you want to look at it. But proving here that the 6900 XT would be a more compelling buy, and if you were sitting on the fence right now today, and by some miracle you came to an e-tailer that had a 3080 and a 6900 XT in stock, and you wanted to buy one to game at 4K, and you were like, should I spend the extra $300 on a 6900 XT and go Team Red, or should I save the money and get an RTX 3080? I have to say that I would choose to spend the $1,000 and grab the 1600 XT. That's going to help you future-proof a little bit more for the higher resolution if that's what you're wanting to game at, which is what I personally prefer. 4K 120 hertz is amazing. I switched over from ultra-wide to gaming at that resolution, and I absolutely love it. So I can see a lot of people sitting on the fence trying to choose between one or the other. But yeah, obviously inventory is going to be a huge concern here, but the 1600 XT looking like a very good card here for ultra-wide as well as 4K. So those are the gaming benchmarks out of the way, but I did want to talk a little bit about overclocking as well, which I'm not showing any results here today because I had a little bit of a issue with using that. I tried using Rage mode, which didn't really net any significant performance gains for me on the 6900 XT, and I also did try manually overclocking it. Now, I was easily able to whack the overclock on this card up to around 2800 megahertz or so. It's supposed to run around 2500 out of the box, and it rarely does. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that game boosts incredibly well. That can get up to around 2500 megahertz, while most other games I'm seeing around 2300 megahertz, in most situations. And it's not really that it's temperature limited or anything like that. It's just not boosting as high as I really would like it to. So even if I put on that overclock up to 2800 megahertz, it still seemed to be very game or engine dependent on how far the card would actually push. For instance, putting it on 2800, I tested it on Division 2, and the card was still running only around 2300 megahertz, so it wasn't really fully honoring the clock speed that I was putting on for the core clock. When it came to the memory overclocking, I couldn't do any at all. I could put it on, and I would actually see a boost in performance by a few frames per second if I pushed it up to 2100 megahertz. But really the problem was that the screen would constantly flicker. So it either unstable overclocking it, which I don't seem entirely, I don't know if it's a bug, I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's just my card. But even if I put like a 1 megahertz overclock on the video memory, the screen would flicker like black every few seconds or so. It would be like fine for a few seconds and then black, and then fine for a few seconds and then black. And it would happen repeatedly over and over again, and you wouldn't be able to game like that. So memory overclocking, at least for me, was a complete no-go. And core overclocking I could do, but I didn't find it really netting any performance gains, mostly because the actual core clock on the card wasn't pushing itself high, depending on the game that I was playing. And even in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which clocked the highest for me out of the box, also stayed right around stock clock speed. So the overclock didn't really seem to do anything for me in terms of performance, even with the power limit slider, pushed up and all of that stuff. So maybe there could be some voltage tweaking and stuff we could look at down the road. But for me on launch, overclocking did not really net any significant performance gains. And last but certainly not least, we will take a look at the GPU power draw, temperatures, and the clock speeds as well, a little bit further in depth here, as with the recent graphics card reviews, and no different here. I let F1 2020 run on a 30-minute loop at 4K max settings, basically the same settings that I used for the review, and running Cap Frame X in the background, we can get some good sensor statistics with average not FPS, but average, minimum, and maximums for certain data on the card. So we'll jump into Cap Frame X right now here, and I'll give you guys a quick overview of that. So as you can see, during this 30-minute run, the GPU clock was running at a minimum of 0, well, obviously, and an average of 2250 megahertz, which is backing up what I was saying there about how in some games it doesn't really hit up to the 2500 boost that we would hope it to, although the max did seem to hit 2554. So it did seem that it was able to hit that at a max, but on average, over 30 minutes, it was actually running a fair amount lower than that, about 250 or so megahertz below the max boost clock of 2544 here, running at 2250 most of the time, on the 30-minute run of F1 2020. So that's really, I feel like in most gaming scenarios where you're going to see your clock speed is around 2250. As far as the power draw for the GPU, we saw an average of 252 and a max of 255, which is, right where this is advertised, so really nothing too surprising there. And as far as temperatures, despite having more compute units than the 6800 XT, this ended up actually averaging out only 1 degree hotter than what I saw in my 6800 XT. On average, this was 76 degrees Celsius over the course of that run, while on my 6800 XT, it was 75. And I remember testing on the Power Color card, although that was a 6800, so never mind that. So it was 76 degrees Celsius here average on this. The max was 79, so it did get up there a little bit, but for the most part, it was running 76 degrees Celsius over 30 minutes, which is probably what you can expect to see if you're running VSync off at 4K and the card is maxed out at 99% usage over a significantly long gaming session. So that is all of the data that I have to share with you guys today on the 6900 XT. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on what you thought of today's testing, especially focusing more on ultra-wide and 4K and getting away from the lower resolution tiers. Even though a lot of people game at those, I really don't feel like too many people are going out there and spending $1,000 to game at 1080p or maybe 1440p in some situations, but even then, I honestly wouldn't recommend that. It seems like such a waste of a beast of a graphics card, which is exactly what the 1600 XT. This card is a complete beast of a card, and obviously I didn't have the 3090 here to test, but as I said, we know where that card tends to lie compared to the RTX 3080, and imagining where those numbers would be, I have to say that it would seem a big reach to say that the 3090 would be worth $500 more than the 6900 XT, unless maybe you're using it for a professional workload and you could really leverage the extra video memory that the RTX 3090 has to offer. But this has 16 gigabytes. I really feel like this is much more of a gaming card than the RTX 3090. It seems like that extra VRAM is more focused for professional use. While the 16 gigabytes on here, even for 4K, you're going to be absolutely fine for the until the next generation of cards, and probably even beyond that. I think as far as VRAM amount, AMD really hit a sweet spot with 16 gigabytes and did an incredible job. This card is great. I have absolutely no issues recommending it. Even the reference model card here runs cool, runs quiet, and you can't go wrong with it. Of course, we will see partner cards probably running even cooler and quieter than this, with roughly the same performance. And maybe with those, we'll see a little bit better overclocking that I saw here today. But, other people might have had better luck with overclocking than I did. Those are just the results I got. And gaming-wise, excellent for 4K and ultra-wide. And if you are going to game at 1440, obviously, the frame rates are going to be even higher than what you saw here at 1440p ultra wide, so you can go from there. We didn't have a single game below 60 frames per second at 1440 ultra wide, so if you go in a game at 1440, it's just going to be gravy for you if you happen to pick one of these up for that resolution. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Please leave me your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up on it, subscribe if you're not already, and I will catch you guys next time for another video. Ciao.